Okay, hi, my name is Jake, and this video for Canadian Cutting Edge is about how to use the TSPROF sharpening system. Now, this isn't just about this system. A lot of the things I'm going to show you apply to everything from your tiny little Lansky handheld sharpening to any of the other systems that have a rod that holds, or a mechanism that holds a stone that slides across a blade that is held in place with some kind of clamp. So a lot of these truths, or maybe not call them truths, a lot of these ideas of how to sharpen translate right across all of them. And of course, a few of the things that I'm going to show you are unique to this system. Now, the first thing that I need to talk about is something that I didn't make clear properly on the review video. I talked about these two clamps. You get these two small ones with your basic system, the lowest price system that you can buy, the K-02. You don't get this clamp, you get these two. And I said that these can hold a knife that is up to 3.5 millimeters thick. That's what's recommended. It can actually hold a little bit more, but it's not recommended. And that's because this silver section here is the spring. You got one on each side, and it's a thin steel spring that will wear out prematurely if you put too thick of a knife in there. Now, you can buy replacement springs. And that's one of the really great things about this system is it's very modular in terms of being able to do your own maintenance, buying your own parts. But if you order this clamp, the single clamp, the spec for this is 5 millimeters thick. So a 5 millimeter thick blade is recommended up to a 5 millimeter. So technically you can probably get away with something a little bit thicker, but there's very few knives out there that are over 5 millimeters thick. Well, let's be honest here. So if you got a lot of thicker knives, make sure you order this clamp as well. And I've suggested to them that they design a clamp that will go even thicker, just as an option that people could buy. Maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't, I don't know. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk about before I start sharpening is you can see how this is black here. And that's because it's got oil on it. I oil it probably once every, 15, 20 knives. I just add a couple drops of light oil, like thin light oil, like soy machine oil actually is what I use. I wipe off the excess oil there, clean it up, and start again. And that's because if this is moving smoothly, it takes much less effort, and it's more enjoyable to sharpen your knives. So I'm not going to talk about setting this thing up. I'm just going to talk about now how to sharpen knives. First off, your standard easy knife to sharpen. Something like this. Of course, it's not, don't look at the complexity of the knife, just how easy it is. You've got a big flat section here that you can clamp on, and you've got a simple belly to sharpen. You've got a nice sharpener's choil there, so no danger of getting into the recurve. So all you need to do is put it in there. Let's see how loose that is first. They do come with little tools. I went ahead and I bought these hex Allen keys, just because with the bigger handles and stuff, it's just easier to operate it. You just put that in there, and I center it up as well as I can, so it's got a good clamp. And I just finger tighten it very lightly there, and just do the same thing on this side, just lightly tighten it. Don't go cranking on these front two. And this is unique to this one, of course. And then you clamp tight the back. And as I said in the video, you can hear it starting to tighten up. That's good enough. You want to have your two clamp arms be parallel. And once it's tight, it's nice, and it's not going to move around. Initially, I thought, whoa, I'm going to scratch up all my nice blades. And so what I started doing, I was putting tape on the surfaces of the knife here where I was going to clamp it. I found out later on that's really not necessary, especially if you've got tape that has a really weak glue bond. It's actually going to make your knife have too much freedom to wiggle around. You just snug it up nicely, and you don't go rough with the thing, and you're going to be fine. If you're one of those guys who likes to sharpen rough and you try to get all the, stuff done in 2 strokes, you might run into troubles. But if you sharpen nice and light, just take it easy, you're going to be fine. So that clamps on, holds it well. You can, of course, use tape, and there is going to be reasons to use tape later on, and I'll tell you about that. So it's on there. I soak my stones in water. That's because the stones that come with it are the kind that are best if you have them wet. So I let them soak for 5 minutes or so before I get started. And my hand gets all wet, so I have rags around to dry my hands off. Dry the back of this off a little bit. Put it in the clamp. Center it up. There you go. That's good. And then, where did it go? There you go. I got a Sharpie marker. And I slide my Sharpie across the cutting edge. That way I'll be able to see when I'm sharpening it if my sharpening stone is going over the whole thing evenly or not. Turn it. Do it the other side. There we go. Put that away. That side's wetter, so this side's a bit drier. So I'll check right away. And all I do is do 1 stroke. I just leave the last setup that I had. And oh, that's terrible. Loosen up this bronze wheel. Bring it down. It looked like it needed a fair bit, so I'll bring it down a long ways. And let's try again. Oh, I could just hear it. You could feel it, that it was doing much better going across more of the stone. That's really good. And this is the other option. If you don't want to do this and you want to get a particular degree on the knife, so you don't just want to match it, you want to make it a certain degree, I go on here flat and I zero it out. So now it's not quite on zero, so I have to zero it out. So that's my flat. And then I put the knife down here, and there's a flat spot here. I've gotten in the habit of using this spot here, but you could use this flat spot here, and then just set it on there and let it find the angle. And right now it's at 17.5. Now for this little knife, 17.5 isn't bad. I don't mind. So I can leave it there, but if I want a different degree, all I do is loosen this wheel, change it until I get the degree that I want. It's at 18 degrees now. Tighten up this bronze wheel, put that away, and now I can just go and sharpen. And some of you might be going, oh, he's going just back and forth like that. That's scary. You should just go down, or you should just go up. I don't know what you've been taught, but the thing is, I found I've done well over 100 knives with this thing, and I've sharpened knives for many, many years. This is not like using a wet stone on a table and you're trying to get that burn stuff. It's a different setup and it works differently, and you don't need to do that. You can just go back and forth until you've taken off all of that Sharpie and then double check what you've got. Now don't go too far over the edge. I don't try to go more than a quarter of the way over. So a quarter of this stone can hang past the tip. I don't want half, because if I do half, I can start to tilt the stick, the stone, and I don't want to tilt the stone and rub the tip off. So just go a little bit past. You can use this to adjust the length of your throw to make sure that you're not going to go over the stone, or over the stone this way, over the blade, I should say, with the stone. Now, if your stone is going to start rubbing onto the handle, all you do is loosen this up and you change the angle of the knife, or you take this thing apart and only put the blade in here, which I'll tell you why you need to do that later on for some knives. So often at the tip, yeah, I do this because that way I'm not going to round it off by coming back and hitting it. Yeah, sometimes I do little strokes, sometimes big. But for the first set of stones on my coarsest stone, I basically go the same way that the manufacturer did, up and down. Now let me show you something. This piece of paper is representing a knife. And that's a very zoomed close-up of a knife. If this is the knife here, all I'm doing is zooming into this little piece the size of my fingernail right there. That's what this is. This bright section down here, the final cutting edge, that's this section right here. From the factory, you can generally see tiny little lines in that final grind, on the final bevel right there. Tiny little lines that their sharpening system put in. That's what this represents. So my first sharpening that I'm doing is going to follow this closely, but not exactly. I'll draw in red what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to stroke up and down in this angle, just slightly, maybe 5 degrees more either way. So I'm going up and across. Of course, not every stroke is going to be perfect, but about a little bit off of these lines. And that's because I don't want to stay in these ruts that they've created. I don't want to, keep going right in them. I want to go on an angle across them to start to take off the high spots, and so the low spots will get cut out. Well, with the high spots cut off, you'll get down to the low spots. And then you go to your second stone. And what do you do with your second stone? With your second stone, you go on a slightly greater angle. First one side, then the other way. Your third stone, you go on an even greater angle. And so on. You just keep doing that, going on a greater angle until you're done. And your very last stone, if you want to polish it and make it very shiny, you're going to be going across the cutting edge. And that will get you nice even polish. If on your final stone you're going like this, you're going to create bright and dull spots across your cutting edge. So on your very final stone, you want to go across like that. Hope that makes sense. Please do put any questions you have in the comment section below, or even consider emailing me. So I've already done this side. Flip it over, and let's do this side. Now, with my eyes being just nasty, I often take my glasses off to take a good look at the edge here. Well, that looks pretty good, not quite done. This first stone is the most important stone, much more important than your last stones. You want to get this a nice even grind all the way across before you move on to your next stone. Now, you don't want to take off too much steel either. And you can use a cloth to wipe off any dust that you have on there so you can get a better look at what you got. Now, very often on a budget knife that you get from the factory, let's see if I've got this one. I'll show. Hopefully it'll show it. On this knife, you can see how the ricasso comes up, and they sharpened all the way up the ricasso because here's a flat spot that's not going to get sharpened. So as you're sharpening up this way, you're going to get a spot where you're not going to get a cutting edge. This is a very dramatic version of this, but you see the same kind of thing on a lot of knives, just to a much lesser degree, especially if they're a minor recurve kind of blade. Don't try to make this end perfect because you'll have to take off a load of steel to do that, and you don't want to waste the steel on your knife. You just sharpen till it's nice. Because next time that you have to sharpen it, you'll get closer to getting that end perfect. And then the third time you'll get even closer, and eventually you will get it perfect. But you don't want to waste all that steel by sharpening down to that the very first time you sharpen your knife. So that's done. This thing's got a spring right here. I just give it a squeeze, pulling back my thumb and my fingers, take the stone off, and then I rinse off the stone, rinse off any powder, any gunk, any residue that's been built up. And I either leave it in my pail if I'm going to be using it some more, or I just set it aside. Grab the next stone, put it on, straighten it up. Now this is the narrow clamp. When you buy it, it comes with a wider clamp that's just slightly wider than this stone. I ordered the narrow clamp separately, and I just haven't put the wider stone on. So there you go. And you do it again. Now you do want to use up as much of your stone as you possibly can. You don't want to just sharpen in the middle here, because you're going to make your stone get a nice curve in it like this, and that's going to be bad because that angle's different there and there when it's got a big curve in it like that. So you do want to adjust these knobs so that you get the sharpening as close to the end as you can without going over. And then you do want to take the full stroke. Maybe for a while you might want to concentrate on one end. If you are starting to dish it, then concentrate on using one end. And then use the other end. It doesn't matter, short strokes, long strokes, really doesn't matter, just as long as you're getting the job done. And when you're a complete novice and you're just getting started on this, go ahead and take your marker and wipe it all off and then put a new line of marker on there to make sure you get everywhere. But pretty soon you'll be getting to see exactly what's going on. Because if I wipe this off and I go to sharpen it, I will see the steel color change on the edge. And then when I go the other direction, it's going to change again and it'll look different. And that's because the light is striking those little ridges that I'm carving into the steel. And that's what you're doing with a filing stone. It's not perfectly flat. You're making little ridges and the light hits it differently. And so as you change from angles, it looks different. So there you go. Wipe that off, flip it over, do the other side. Again, make sure you don't go too far over the tip because then you're going to round it off. It's really not as particular as some people say it is. And I know I always say that word in a weird way. But you just basically want to, rub your stone on there until you get that nice and flattened off and get some of those little ridges filed out. And you do both sides. I think I did the other side already, didn't I? It's hard to concentrate while you're talking and doing this. But you do want to make sure that you're doing the same amount of filing or grinding on each side of the blade. When you're first getting started, you might want to count that you're going to do 10 strokes. And then you do the other side 10 strokes, just so that you don't lose track of how much you're doing. As you do it more and more, you'll start to get very used to how long you've been sharpening, and you'll know, I've spent, 30 seconds on this side, I can do 30 seconds on the other side. On a knife this size, when I'm not making a video, not talking to anybody, this blade here takes me about 5 minutes to sharpen from factory edge to almost a mirror edge. And that's all it takes for something this small. Very little pressure, very, very little pressure. Now, if I was using this as my outdoor blade that I'm just using for, doing outdoor work or doing a lot of breaking down of cardboard boxes, I'm taking it to my job or whatever, that's as far as I'm going to sharpen it, that 400. Maybe I'll use this 600 and sharpen it a little bit with a 600 stone, but probably not, because I don't want to use up more steel than I really need to. And this isn't going to help me do the job better. After 400, maybe 600, any finer than that won't really help it cut much better. And I'm talking about sportsman's knives, not kitchen knives. It's really not going to help it cut much better. Theoretically, yes. Practically, it's a very small percentage better. And so I just go to 400, maybe 600, and I just use the knife. Well, I strop it, and then I use the knife. The higher the grit you're going to, after you've got this, as you move up, it's less time with each stone. You don't need as much time. And that's because the blade has got much narrower cuts in it that you need to clean off. and flatten out. And I'm going on sharper angles now. And yeah, I can just go like this if I want to, or just like this. I tend to just do at the tip sometimes, you know, with strokes where I touch and slide up. And so this is my 1000 grit. This is the finest stone that comes with the kit. And so I'm doing very close to just across. But first I do just a very slight angle. I go back and forth opposite ways in a very, you know, shallow X kind of pattern that I'm doing. You know, of course your stones are like this, and then next ones and next ones and next ones, and you're going down like that. That's just my pattern. You can do any pattern you want, but the thing is, each grit that you're using, you don't want to do it on the exact same angle. That's the main point. Don't do it exactly the same with every stone. Change it up. And then I start going side to side. Now don't go too far because again, you're going to round over the tip. And I often just do this. With this setup, this table's not that stable. I often hold it with one hand and I just go back and forth and I ride from the bottom of the stone up to the top of the stone, just going back and forth. And then I take a look at what I got. And if there's some spots that look shinier than others, that means it hasn't done very well yet, and I just go over it again. And with this finer stone, it's good to put a little bit extra pressure sometimes. This is taking away very little metal. And very often, the last few strokes, I start at the pivot end of the blade, and I just slide it towards the tip, and I let go and do it again. And this is the final polish that I'm doing with this stone. If you've got finer grit stones, maybe an Arkansas stone or something, you know, you can then use that. But there you go. It's nicely polished. And turn it over and do the other side now. And then you loosen it up in the opposite order. Go with this back one first. Loosen it up. I need to lube up that screw a little bit. And so that's loose, so you can easily twist it like that. And then I loosen up this next one. Now I need to hold the knife because it might just fall out otherwise. Take it out. And as you can see, there's no scratch marks up here. And my bevel is nice and shiny. I'll give you a close-up picture of that. Of course, I need to then go and strop this, but I've done a video on stropping. You can watch that separately. If you have any questions, if you've got a unique knife, please send me a link so I can see your knife. Hopefully I can get really high quality pictures of it. Maybe I even have the knife if you think I might have it, and tell me exactly what knife that is. And I'll show you what I think is the best way to clamp this up. Now, before you tune out, before I'm done, this is Jake's idea of how Jake likes to sharpen. This is not the right way to sharpen knives. That doesn't exist. Because the right way to sharpen knives is when your knife is sharp. You've done it right. I'm a firm believer in that. If you get your knife sharp, you've done it correctly. I don't care how you get to that point. The only thing I think you should care about is how much steel you've wasted. You know, if you haven't wasted a lot of steel and you've got your blade sharp, you're doing it the right way. So what I'm talking about here, the way I use the K-02, this is my way of getting knives sharp. If you can learn something from it, great. If you didn't learn anything, I'm sorry I wasted your time. But hopefully you can teach some people some ways on how to sharpen things. I'm just offering you guys my ideas of how I sharpen knives. So please, in the comment section below, write down any questions. If you got something really serious, something really intense, something that needs pictures, then please email me at canadiancuttingedge@gmail.com and send me those pictures, and I'll try to answer them as best I can. And, you know, because I'm here to help you guys. I'm a firm believer in this channel, Canadian Cutting Edge. to be mostly about education. I want to review knives so that you can learn about them. And I want to do other kinds of things so that you learn more about how knives work and how knives are best maintained. And I'm humble enough to let you know that I don't think that I'm right all the time. I just think I've got some things to contribute, and I know that there's loads of other people that got way more to contribute as well. So keep on checking other YouTube channels, and when you find good channels, stick with them, subscribe, and keep watching their videos. If you think there's a channel that I could learn something from, let me know about it, because I appreciate always learning more stuff. So thanks for watching. Thanks for liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. And remember, always cut towards your chum. Chum is an old English word for the other guy, your friend, your buddy, your pal. Cut towards your chum, not your bloomin' thumb.